G'day everyone, and saying hello from the other side of the world. As you can see, it appears I am now operating out of a laundry. It's been raining for days. I'm surrounded by wet clothes. The glamour never stops, does it really? Okay, now, why do I think the Dems should not impeach? I hope I got your attention with the title here. The last few weeks, or the whole of August, but particularly the last couple of weeks, have demonstrated that Trump is clearly, at best, incompetent, if not a force for malevolence. He's a clear and present danger to himself, the country, and the world. And I think every Democrat with a microphone should be saying to the Republicans, how dare you put the country through the drawn-out drama and expense of impeachment? You have the 25th in your hands. Use it. Actually call them out. Hit the ball back into their court. The last thing America needs is a 2-year impeachment process. Make it their problem. Obviously, you'd finish that sentence by saying, if you don't, we'll impeach anyway. But you know what? Make it someone else's problem. He's their Frankenstein. They have to own him. Yeah. Do I have to tell them everything? Really? All jokes aside, thanks heaps. The comments keep rolling in about the joint reading with Mary Ann. And apart from it being a lot of fun, we covered some amazing stuff. And I'm reluctantly bringing my timeline forward onto Trump's exit. So you'll have to go and check that out. I'm not 100% guaranteed, but definitely got a shift in that. Deutsche Bank. Now, I predicted over a year ago, on more than one occasion, the Deutsche Bank stuff is what will bring down the actual Trump dynasty, as you guys say, tomato and tomato. And that's because, and I love this, it involves Trump and Junior and Ivanka and Kushner, the whole lot of them. And so now Deutsche Bank have reluctantly revealed that the signatures of the guarantors for the Trump loans were known Russian oligarchs. Deutsche Bank has its own issues, as I'm sure most of you are aware. They had corrupt rogue bankers, one of whom happened to be, allegedly, let's just cover ourselves here, the son of Justice Kennedy. He who resigned mysteriously 15 years early, just as this stuff was being investigated. Now, Deutsche Bank has the dirt and the paper trail. So again, you know, why should the Dems spend another year trying to pull teeth on this stuff? The Republicans need to stand up. Now, I read for a minute on Bill Weld, or whatever his name is. He's not going to cut it. Trump would eat him for breakfast with or without ketchup, you know, too soft. Joe Walsh is another kettle of fish, so I'm reading on him today. Joe Walsh, ex-sheriff. The only thing I know about Joe Walsh is he refused to pay child support to his wife. That actually tells me a lot about the calibre of this man. So if he's the best they can come up with, God help everybody. Really? They can only come up with another right-wing, fascist, misogynist turkey. Right? Is that all they can offer? Really? Well, let's have a look at Joe Walsh. I'm using the Russian cards, might as well, you know. I mean, it appears that everything keeps coming back to Russia. I'm not suggesting right now it's him, but I think the flavour of these cards sort of sum up his energy. Ugh. So, Joe Walsh. He's throwing his hat in the ring. What can we expect of the run by Joe Walsh? Joe Walsh. All right. He's being frisked down for things he's done, not all of them good. He's already, and he's only been sort of a player for a few weeks, and already the dirt is being gathered. Yeah, it's a freaked out element to this. So he comes across with all this macho bravado, but I think he's got too much baggage from that card, things that might be found on him. The pen is mightier than the sword, we will see, and they're talking about it, they're thinking about it. Ending in heartbreak and one more, King of Wands. All right. It's a funny business, isn't it? In his immediate past, this is the Ace of Wands. The Ace of Wands in the Rider-Waite deck is the Fred Flintstone card, as I call it, the blunt instrument, which to me would be much more suited to the little bit I know about Joe Walsh. But this has this hugely proportioned pen, and I think what this is indicating, my feel on it is, this is speech writing. I'm hearing speech writing. He has got someone else writing his speeches. That's interesting. Most egotistical men, particularly sort of right-wing men, just sort of, off the top, smash everybody. He's smart enough to know that's not going to cut it. So he's got a speechwriter who's going to try and carve a path for him that tries to show him as a bit more sharing and caring. I don't think it'll work, but it's interesting that he has even identified that as an issue, or his handlers have identified it. So in other words, they don't want him off the leash. Who doesn't want him off the leash? Well, this is, I suspect, Republican women. That's my vibe on this. Republican women will not support him because of failing to pay child support. We're not just talking about a divorce between adults and not paying alimony, child support. Like Joe Walsh, the fairies are going to feed and clothe your children. Yes, you can punish your wife by not paying for them. It's the lowest, most disgusting act. Shame on you. And you can kiss the Republican women's support. Of course, there are going to be those who will always, support their man and, he's our Republican now. But Republican women will not be impressed with Joe Walsh. And already they're starting to get wobbly in terms of their cradle-to-grave support. This is the behind-the-scenes GOP. What do you think about Joe Walsh? Can we go with Joe Walsh? We've got to get someone in there. The guy is a lunatic. I mean, Trump. What do you reckon? What do you reckon? My vibe on this card in this reading is they're happy for him to go forward, but they don't think he's going to cut it. This is not a group of decisive men, if you know what I mean. These aren't the real power brokers. This is rank and file Republicans going, we can put up Joe Walsh. He's a sheriff, he's a guy, he won't back down with a couple of tweets, he'll go for it. This is people who don't have the final decision. This isn't the Mitch McConnells. This isn't Lindsay, Queen of Swords, Graham. This isn't any of the significant players. This is that next tier down who would really like to see someone else so they can survive. Right. The next tier up, the Mitch McConnells, Moscow Mitch and Leningrad Lindsay, they all stand to make immense personal wealth by their relationship with Russia, whatever happens to Trump and whatever happens in the election. These are the ones who want to be players in politics. They're the ones who are pushing his candidacy. Outcome, heartbreak. Three of Swords. So it's not going to get there. But I pulled an extra card because I was a bit curious. And this card always turns up for me with this deck. I don't know what's happened to the other 70 cards in the deck, but I always get these ones right. Okay. It's very strange. This is the king. Doesn't look like a king. Why? Because we're talking Russia. We don't have kings. And there was a people's revolution of some magnitude in 1917, and it is still being felt to this day. But the key is in the spectacles. The street sweeper is listening for the king. So listening and looking through the king's eyes. I think Walsh can do some damage. And I'd be happy to pay admission and buy a packet of peanuts to watch that, because I think he has the cojones to blatantly go for some of Trump's worst excesses, and that needs to be heard from Republicans, other than those who have stepped aside. He can do some damage because it's coming out of a Republican mouth. But I don't think he's going to get the nomination. They're going to hang around and put the very limp, weird and sinister Pence there as caretaker, most likely. But may the damage roll on. So that's not altogether bad from the perspective of the other side, which is us. Now, I also thought, viewers, the number of people who are haunting Trump. How many people are haunting Trump? Well, I had a dream. About Eleanor Roosevelt. You know what? I spend too much time in this world, I think. That is really weird. I admire her in the abstract, but frankly, I didn't know much about her. And I found out that she was actually, in 1948, she engineered and played a big part in the Declaration of Human Rights. She was amazing. So Franklin D. Roosevelt, also the hubby, I wonder about that marriage, also had some extraordinary and direct things to say to the American people, and I found a really good quote from him, and I'm going to pin it to this video. So, what I'm going to ask now, those who are haunting Trump. The first one, John McCain. Okay. So, what's John McCain up to in the afterlife? What's he thinking now from his unique position? What does he think about Trump now? I see him smiling but shaking his head going, oh, the country shouldn't have to go through this. But he's smiling because he can see a bigger picture on the other side. His energy is really quite radiant, considering he was also a flawed human being, as we all are. And he's certainly a vast improvement on his weird dogmatic daughter. But anyway, what's John McCain? I will change the question. John McCain's message. What's John McCain's message? Moving way to better times. Oh, bless John McCain. All right, this is quite a clear message here. America is travelling through troubled waters, but will be moving on from troubled waters. The world. Yes, the world is obsessed with this man and this time in history, but also it has another meaning of the world, meaning if you look at, I'm sure it's the same in the US. In Australia, we religiously recycle every week, some more than others, and all that happens is it goes to a recycling mountain somewhere. There's no real processing. Things aren't actually being anythinged. That should be part of green jobs, you know, building recycling and stuff. What I'm saying is, if we ignore climate change, the world is round. You can't throw plastic away. You can't throw these toxins away. The world goes round. And we're sitting in bigger and bigger toxic piles, which isn't even touching on the Amazon, etc. It's a very important time for the world, and it should not be led by an imbecilic, unneutered Yeti. John McCain's message, trust the system, and I'm hearing improve the system. That's interesting. It's not just saying, oh, it'll be all right, you know, the checks and balances will hold. Patently, they are too slow, even if they hold. They have to be improved. America needs to move away from what got them in this situation, guys. And that's the vacuous emptiness. Trump is merely the face of materialism. You know, what people prioritize as important in their world has become, everywhere, has become really shallow and driven by possessions and just these dreadful, shallow values. It's got to end. We've got to revisit what is valuable, you know? It's part of the big story and the big transition. And John McCain is saying to the youth, go for it. This is directly speaking to the youth with the raised swords. Go for it. The second one I want to do a little quick reading on, Rashida Tlaib's grandmother. When she was refused access to go and visit her grandmother, the grandmother came back and basically cursed Trump. Old school. I love that. Old school. May God ruin you, was her express comment. So, she's alive, but she's haunting him because you can be very sure she affirms this on a daily basis. So, what is the message from Rashida Tlaib's grandmother that we should learn? What is the message? What is the message? And then I'll do Eleanor Roosevelt, seeing she came to me. Knight of Wands. Nice question. Oh, nice sister. Walking away. Oh, very interesting. Oh, lovely. Lovely. Oh, what a gorgeous little spread. Okay, I'll be quick because I've got to cover Eleanor. In the middle, my favourite knight, the Knight of Wands, the cautious knight, proceeding ahead, but actually evaluating the landscape. If you look at the Knight of Swords is rushing into the headwinds, very impetuous. The Knight of Wands thinks about things. So she's encouraging her granddaughter and the younger politicised people who work with her, the squad, but also those they represent. Have courage, take on the battle, but proceed with caution. Behind that, her wish, her personal heartfelt wish is for the star, hope and inspiration for all people. to leave behind the animosity and the tension and move away. This is voluntarily moving away, I would say, from that King of Pentacles, moving away from that vacuous, shallow energy. This is more thoughtful, creative, softer, emotional energy. So taking that energy with you as you travel and as you fight. So in other words, love conquers hate. On top, her wish might come true, her star wish, in the sense she gets the sun in a very positive reading. So it's the traditional reading of the sun. The beaming life force. Children have a right to be children, to be healthy and happy. And it is the responsibility of each and every one of us to work towards that. This is such a beautiful reading. It's taking my breath away. Short-term outcome, she would see this no doubt as her granddaughter, but it's bigger than Rashida. This is the Empress in her fertility and her generosity of wanting to be people to be fed and comfortable and secure. It's also fertility of ideas of how to accomplish that. So this was a very, very, very nice reading. I love the grandmother. Rashida, if you see this video, please give her my love. And she wouldn't find this strange at all. Okay, why did Eleanor Roosevelt turn up? What's her message? What's her message? Eleanor Roosevelt. What an extraordinary woman. I've just got so much more respect for her. To have that vision in 1948, just after the World War II had finished, it's only 3 years later, took a lot of lobbying. Wow. Eleanor Roosevelt's message for America. Oh, bless. This is very clear too. She's coming through beautifully. All right, bang in the center. The Fool card. One of the three most maligned cards or not maligned, misunderstood, I feel, in the tarot. I have to be quick because I'm at 22 minutes. So, if I get the Fool in the light of the Trump as a 73-year-old man, it is, as the artwork suggests, not looking at walking off a cliff. It could be Boris Johnson walking off the Brexit cliff, etc. A stupid act. But at its higher level, and we are talking higher level because we're talking to people who have passed and are operating at a higher level, it is having faith in the universe. It is moving forward with complete faith in a bigger, more important plan outside of ourselves. So it's a perfect card. It is the beginning and end of the major arcana. It is starting afresh. The journey of tarot, which is often called the Fool's Journey, and the journey of America. It's saying go back to basics. Behind that, she is horrified by Trump's emperor tendencies, because that's not what she fought for, etc. And she can see the damage that's being done. So just moving right along. The rip-off. Americans have been ripped off. Yes, possibly by Russia, but that predates all that. The fact that we're told these famous names built America, you know, the Rockefellers or whoever. No, it was working men and women who built America. And there were Chinese workers on the railways that opened up the West and having the lands being stripped by the Native Americans. And it's the Mexicans who are doing so much work in the agricultural sector and in every sector of feeding people in every city and working really hard. And we forget the diversity. So people have been ripped off from history. I'm hearing her say, I mean it as an historical rip-off. That's interesting. That's very interesting. So, and Anglo-America tells itself, you know, everything great that was done by white Americans. No. You know, the Italians, the Irish, the Poles, and so everyone was there in this melting pot along with African Americans, Central Americans. It was the melting pot of the world and been ripped off by history. She's still advocating from the other side for women. Women will get to celebrate and again have faith in the legal system, but go out and strengthen it, demand more from it. So that's Eleanor's message. Wow, total wow. All right, guys, I will be back soon. I'm doing my best to keep up with the craziness that's going on. I will see you really soon.